Welcome everybody. We're going to talk to you today about online treatment. We have to do this now. We can do it. Yes, we can. It's a famous expression, famous quote. And we have to at this moment. The reason why we give these webinars, and we have been giving them for 4 weeks now, is that because of the COVID-19 crisis, a lot of our care as healthcare professionals will have to be done online because of the crisis. And to accelerate that process and to accommodate it, we give these webinars, and we hope that you profit from it as a healthcare professional and that you take a lot from it home. So take notes if you can, turn off your phone if you can, and let's we want to do this for 1 hour. We hope to give you all the information we can get to help your practice, everyday practice online. Thank you for joining us. Here we go.
Yes, so Bram, me, Bart, Helene, we've been teaching e-health for a couple of years now, a lot of years actually, summed up. And up till a month ago, we saw that a minority was working with e-health, or blended care, so to say. And now we saw that everybody needs to shift to online care. In this presentation, we want to share a lot of our stories of, summed up 50 years of experience with the 4 of us. So we're going to tell a lot of stories, and we hope to help you get the courage to work online with these stories.
Yes. Quickly want to introduce ourselves without taking too much time for it, but why do we give these webinars? Well, we've been working in e-health a lot. Tim, Dr. Tim Wind, he's a clinical psychologist. He works at Center 45, which is a trauma center where he deals with complex patients, and he implements e-health. He's been doing that for years there. He's got his own practice in Amsterdam, also giving e-health. He is a teacher at the Rhino Amsterdam, which is a teaching institute where he teaches also about online treatment. He's had his PhD at the University of Utrecht, and he's working right now also joined in research at Harvard University. He's got extensive experience working with refugees and also working with them, again, in e-health. And he is one of the founders of e-health specialists, and we're really glad that he's on board. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Bram. And then Bart, making me humble here. This is first blended therapist of Holland. And so Bart moved in 2013 to Paris with his partner. And he wanted to continue doing psychotherapy. So he started working screen to screen with people in Holland and around the globe. He started his practice Affectivity back then in 2013. It still exists. And he started a second practice in online addiction care, sobriety online. Bart, just like me and Bram, have been teaching, and Helene, of course, have been teaching in e-health for years. Bart has been teaching in the Dutch institutes, the Rhino's mainly. He started an online care unit in the north of Holland. He's the head teacher of innovation in Radboud Center Social Sciences. And he's a guest lecturer in the Free University of Amsterdam. And of course, Bart is part of the e-health specialist.
Thank you very much, Tim. And of course, we've got Bram van der Boom, psychiatrist. He has been working for a long time in a mental health care institute in the east of our country. It's called Mediant. And he's one of the first digital psychiatrists in the Netherlands. And he started when he was working from Australia back then. He started SoluTalks. It's a mental health care institute for severe problems. It's only working online. And he's working also for in SoluWorks. It's a company who's busy with psychiatrists who are working online to set them out in the country in different places. Furthermore, he has his own company, Van der Boom Online, where he works as a consultant in online therapy and as a lecturer. And right now he's doing a lot of exercises on online schema therapy in a group. He works together with Helene Rieper. And of course, he's one of our colleagues in e-health specialists.
Thank you, Bart. And of course, we want to introduce Professor Dr. Helene Rieper. She is our guest lecturer today, answering one of the most important questions that we get. Is online treatment evidence-based? Are we going to do this, but is it actually evidence-based? Because a lot of people have to. And to answer that question, Helene is with us to answer exactly that question, and we're excited to have her.
We organized this webinar just around 7 myths, because a lot of our colleagues have been being quite critical about online treatment. They had different and several ideas about that's not possible, that's not suitable for our clients, etc., etc. And we tried to talk about these 7 myths, and we are of course convinced that that it's not true. So we'll try to convince you that it's that it's a different that's another an idea on these myths. The first one is that e-health is not evidence-based. And Helene, I want to give you the podium to talk about this myth.
Excellent.
And you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have so. Thank you, Bart. Welcome to you all. Bienvenue. Willkommen. It is really a pleasure to give you a very brief introduction about the current evidence based on specifically video conferencing for mental health problems and disorders. I'm very happy to collaborate. I call these 3 guys the 3 musketeers because they have set up this initiative in almost in less than 3 weeks, and now working, I wanted to say they're as flat out. I'm saying that to provide many masterclasses and free webinars. So my compliments. May I have the next slide, please? So if I would have given this brief introduction about the state of the art and the evidence-based of video conferencing for mental health problems, I would say we are doing a great job, but the implementation is going so extremely slow. Now, 3 weeks ago, we were all confronted with the isolation, the forced isolation or intelligent isolation, as we call it in the Netherlands, to stop spreading the COVID virus around, and suddenly the mental health landscape of social service provision has changed dramatically because so many therapists, or most therapists, have to work now from home and are discovering or are forced to discover the possibilities of video conferencing. May I have the next slide, please? If you want to know more, I don't know how familiar you are with the e-mental health landscape and the level of implementation before the COVID-19 pandemic, please have a brief look at the paper we have written and published very quickly about this black swan moment as initiated by Tim Wind. It is a free accessible paper. Next slide, please. Now, I have a very simple message for you this evening. When we look at the current evidence for video conferencing, which is, by the way, already for many years around us, but maybe in areas where there's a lot of geographical distance between patients and health professionals, it is already there for around 40 years, made possible by telephone video conferencing, but it was mostly used for professional consultations. When we look now at the current state of the art, I mention here 3 systematic reviews, which are of importance if you want to get a brief overview of the current state of the art. 2 are by Barry Hill and focus on depression and anxiety. And they are based on individual video conferencing, so to 1 patient on 1 therapist. There is also a recently published systematic review which specifically focused on group video conferencing. It's published in 2018 and it is written by Benbury and colleagues. And I hope soon to add a 4th systematic review specifically focused on the treatment of Personality Disorders Online by Bram van der Boom. Next slide. If you have a look at the column under the red heading, which says Research Promising Results for Depression and Anxiety, when we summarize those systematic reviews, then we can see that the therapeutic principles which have been mostly studied in so far is based on cognitive behavioral activation and behavioral activation. As said, they focus both on individual and group therapy. There are 3 different formats of video conferencing therapy which are being presented in those 3 reviews. It is either video conferencing as an add-on to treatment as usual, that might be face-to-face treatment based on CBT, for example, and video conferencing is used as an extra. It might be blended formats. Bart will tell a bit more about it. Blended means it's not a surplus, an add-on, but it's an integrated treatment protocol which combines video conferencing, for example, with face-to-face treatment, but it can be also with other digital communication channels. And what we now see really exploding over the last 3 weeks, at least in the Netherlands, is this fully online video conferencing therapy, with which all 3, Bram, Tim, and Bart have ample experience, and they will tell you later more about this. If you want to summarize the results of those reviews, that we see that video conferencing is acceptable both for patients and for health professionals. It is also suited for those with low digital literacy. So it's not only that the happy few of the highly educated, these studies show that it's very feasible and acceptable for a broad range of patients. The therapeutic relation is as good as in face-to-face therapy. Bonding among the participants is also possible. The results in terms of clinical effectiveness are good. They hint there is a trend that it is as good as face-to-face treatment. There are no negative side effects so far reported. These studies also show that privacy issues were not so much a barrier for patients to participate. And they have also, some studies looked at the treatment fidelity of the therapists. So do the therapists follow the specific treatment protocols online as good as face-to-face? And that is also shows promising results. But can I have my last slide? What everyone needs to take into account is that when something is evidence, it doesn't mean effective for everyone. So there are certain groups which currently say, okay, maybe those we cannot treat with video conferencing, or we have to do it in a more creative manner. And there is still a lack of large-scale randomized control trials. So that is the next step we need to take. But we also think that the cycle and the speed of which we will generate the clinical evidence for video conferencing will now be assessed in a very innovative manner, because so many therapists are currently providing video conferencing for a large variety of psychiatric disorders. So probably with new sophisticated statistical techniques like data-driven techniques and machine learning, I really think that within a year we know a lot more about the robust evidence base of all this type of videos conferencing. But what all those reviews also really clearly say is that you really need to have training in working within a video conferencing environment, because you need other skills. So a lot of things are similar, but you also need other skills and maybe some other tips and tricks. And this you will be able to learn in this brief webinar. And despite that the evidence is growing and promising, I really think by now it's one of the best means to have contact with your patients in a safe way. So this is my last slide. I wish you a very good webinar, and I want to give the floor back to, I don't actually know to whom, to Bart.
Me.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Elaine. I've heard your stories a couple of times lately, and it's a big comfort for us to hear the evidence that we were not crazy the last years in experiencing online therapy. So it's good that you're within us. The next myth is that the therapeutic relationship does not function online. When I moved to Paris in 2013, I started my online practice, and I didn't have any experience with video conferencing. Of course, I was a bit unsure if an online practice could work. At that time, I asked myself the obvious question, can you really do therapy via a camera? Well, a couple of weeks after I started, a young woman enlisted for therapy. Mind you, I had never seen her face to face. She was on a trip around the world for 8 months with her boyfriend. And when she was 6 weeks down her journey, it all went wrong. Her long-time existing anxiety symptoms came up again. And just at the precise moment that they were visiting her older sister in the United States, where her parents happened to be as well. And the past family dynamics appeared and hit a raw nerve. She started to ruminate, started to doubt her partner relationship, and got caught up in thoughts about her life. This culminated in a plan to immediately cancel the trip and go back home. Well, at that time I did the diagnostic interview through video calling, and we decided to treat her generalized anxiety disorder online. We agreed that she and her boyfriend would continue their journey and that she and I would take stock very regularly. We chose to alternate cognitive behavioral therapy with periodic partner relation consultations. Well, they traveled forth to Hawaii, South America, an island in the Pacific Ocean without internet, Australia, New Zealand, and some countries in Asia, and back to Europe. And during this period, I saw her and them regularly, and as a result, I got a good insight of their lives in those 9 countries. I saw her online from Paris, the Provence in the south of France, Ibiza and Amsterdam, because I like to move around as well a bit. And the last session, she was with me in my practice in Paris. And she came down the long corridor, and I had the idea that she had been walking this same corridor for months. We shook hands and said almost at the same time, hey, I thought you were a bit taller than I expected, because that's practically the only thing that you can't see with video conferencing, well, a person's height. Well, we did our last consultation and completed the treatment successfully. And in parting, she told me emotionally that she would miss our consultations because along the trip, she had the feeling that I remained very close. She said that it was also a bit odd for her to experience these feelings, as in fact she had only seen me once in real life. It was clear that we established a very warm, personal and effective therapeutic relationship. And since then I employ the motto, always close in my practice. Well, the audience is quite calm tonight, guys. That's pretty cool.
It's a webinar, and because it's a webinar, just an extra mention, down below you can put your questions in the Q&A, and we try to answer as many questions as we can, so feel free to put them down there. We hope to be able to answer as many as we can, and we can do that the 10 minutes at the end of this webinar. We hope to answer these questions. Thank you so much. The next myth.
Yes, myth-free trauma therapy isn't possible online. I work for the National Trauma Center in Holland, Center 45, and I see the most complex patients, trauma patients in Holland there. And I've been working online for years, so that myth for sure is not true. And most of these stories are born out of necessity. Like Bart was saying, he moved with his partner to Paris, and one of my patients moved to Spain years ago. He bought a house there and he wanted to break off therapy. And I said, let's continue online, screen to screen, like we're doing now. I did EMDR with him, and it worked really well. He saw that online his complaints were diminishing, just like we saw each other face to face. And one of the things, we can say a lot of things about it. We also organize master classes about it, and we go deeper in it in these master classes. But one of the things I did was just go a little bit to the left outside the view of the patient and just move my fingers like this, like we do in face-to-face therapy, and he was following my fingers. So nowadays you do a little bit like this, but so this was what I was doing, and it went really well. There's a lot more to say about EMDR and other trauma therapies, but this is one of the things we did, and this worked really well. Another therapy I do is narrative exposure therapy, usually done with refugees. It's beautiful therapy, which creates a lifeline, like you see on the top of the slide. So you have a rope as a lifeline, some stones and some flowers, stones for traumas and flowers for nice events in their lives, nice memories. And a lot of times I got the question, like, how do you make a lifeline when somebody is not in your therapy room? You can also do it online by sharing your screen, of course, like we do now. So I started making lifelines in Words and in PowerPoints. And patients did it themselves. So they made their own lifeline and put pictures in there. So for sure, no doubt, trauma therapy can be done online. Is just as effective in my perspective. Yeah, so myth 3 is not true.
Myth 4 is group therapy cannot be done online. And to illustrate the not trueness of that myth. I don't think that's English. I want to share. Yes, very Dutch. I want to share a short story. I moved to Australia some years ago with my family, and I just finished my studies as a psychiatrist and also as a group therapist. And I wanted to keep the group therapist registration, so I wanted to keep doing group therapy. And so I moved to Australia and thinking, can I keep doing group therapy? Maybe I can do it online. I'd done Skype before with 3 or 4 people at the same time, and thinking, could you do it with 9 people? Could you do it with 10 people? So I got my whole family online. I come from a big family with lots of brothers and sisters, and I got 9 people online in one go to organize a family event, a family meeting. We go on a family outing every year. And to organize that, we all got online on Skype, and we tried to organize that meeting. It took us an hour, but it went surprisingly well. The connection was quite stable. We could hear each other quite well, and there was not a lot of talking at the same time. So we understood each other, and in the end, we ended up going to the zoo, which was fantastic. But I thought, hey, it's possible. I can do this. We can do online group therapy. Is there any evidence for it? So I went online, looked on PubMed, and I couldn't find any research at that time into group therapy online through video conferencing. So I thought, thinking about that, well, is it then, can I then do it or can I not do it? And then a friend said, why don't you research it yourself? So I went to Professor Helene Rieper and asked her whether this research was already being conducted somewhere. And she explained to me, well, it's not. Why don't we start a project? And so we started a research project into group therapy for personality disorders online through group schema therapy. And we are now halfway through the process. We've done a feasibility study, we've done a pilot, and what we're looking at next year is a randomized controlled trial, multi-center randomized controlled trial. And the results so far have been very promising. We see the same group dynamics, we see the same cohesion, and it actually works to make contact online. And that's something you have to put a bit of extra effort into, but it can be done. And the first results also show similar results. We can show you in this short exercise how you can make contact online as a group. So if Helene maybe wants to join us.
Helene, join us.
Yeah, I will.
Then we will show you an exercise we do in our groups and we can do online. And you can do, if you do group therapy, you can do in your group to touch each other, to make contact. So let's try. We put our hands like this. and we touch. And I'm not touching Bart's hands. You all see
I'm also touching Bart.
Okay, well, it's
I'm
incredible.
slapping
Oh, is
Bart.
that
I'm
possible?
slapping.
Everybody's touching
Everybody's
Bart.
touching me.
But we're going up. We're going up. Everybody going up? Yes. Good. And now we're going down. And at the same time, I can feel, of course, Bart's hand like everybody else. And that's it.
Yes.
Thank you. It's one of the exercises that you can do to make contact. You see us all smiling, and it's because it's fun to do something like that. And the fun creates the connection. So that in a group therapy, you will have to, as a therapist, put in a bit of extra effort to create the same connection, the same cohesion. Thank you, Helene. That you also experience in an offline group. Going back to the myth, yes, it can be done. It's happening now. It's happening all through the Netherlands at this moment, group therapy online, and all throughout the world. And it's very possible, very plausible, very acceptable and feasible, and hopefully effective. We're still researching that. Also, art therapy online. I'm a big fan of art therapy. If you haven't done it yet, try it. It'll change your life. Art therapy is very powerful, and it can be done online. We're doing a webinar, a masterclass about it tonight. We will have Professor Suzanne van Horen, who's a professor in the Netherlands on art therapy, and she will explain to us how it can be done. But I can show you quickly a quick exercise. Just to illustrate the point, here we have a whiteboard, and it's an online whiteboard, and at the same time we can draw on it as a group, or you can draw on it together with the patient. I will quickly draw something on it. It's an exercise from CBT. It's called a shame exercise. You do something that you find difficult or shameful, like writing for a big group of people. I was never a very good writer. I think it comes with the profession. And I'm a little bit ashamed. You can see I turn red. That's the exercise, and it can be done online. Just to illustrate the point that art therapy, drawing together, painting together, creating something together, and then talking about it can be done online. It's very exciting. That was the fourth myth.
Well, the fifth myth is that patients are not motivated for e-health. I will illustrate it that it's not true with another example. In 2016, I started a therapy with a 37-year-old Dutch woman who suffered from issues related to depression and anxiety. And she had just moved to Spain with her husband and little son. They were in charge of a small bed and breakfast and a mini campground and a massive olive grove. And the patient had given up her job in the Netherlands to join her husband to go to Spain, though she experienced inability to settle down in Spain. She blames her husband that he turned everything upside down to go to another country, and she regresses into periods of gloom, and as a result, related tensions, and that she's not able to do a lot. She doubts a lot, and she's afraid that the immigration leads to a total failure. She has reached out to another psychologist or more psychologists for help, for example, for a burnout and identity problems, but the treatments haven't led to satisfactory outcome. And it came out that I happened to be number 9 in a row, and that caused some professional pressure, as you can imagine. I advised her to combine the screen-to-screen therapy via video conferencing and online therapy modules focused on depression and rumination. But she wasn't thrilled about the approach in the beginning, but she accepted the advice and kicked off as planned. We had weekly screen-to-screen sessions, and weekly she completed the online therapy modules. She recognized herself a lot in the psychoeducation, and the idea that she wasn't out on her own gave her a peace of mind. She was able to get a grip on her worrying, and her mood improved, which led to the fact that her body could relax as a result. After six weeks down the line of the treatment, it happened that the complete olive harvest was about to fail as a result of some sort of an insect. At that time, I didn't know Bram, and hence there wasn't a Dutch psychiatrist that I could refer to because no one was working online that days. So I, with a lot of creativity, I did some paperwork, translated letters, and I found a general practitioner in the region in Spain, and who was willing to prescribe for some medication. And that medication did what it's supposed to do. And as a result, we were able to finish the treatment with positive results. And her mother, in the end, said, "You can never let go of this psychologist." But of course, we let it happen, and with that positive result, we ended. I'm personally convinced that a patient's motivation is driven by the enthusiasm of and the motivation of the therapist. In other words, if a therapist doesn't see the benefits of blended therapy, the patient will never adopt this idea either. If a therapist doesn't see him or herself in a group therapy, I'm sure her patient or his patient won't see himself either in a group therapy. Online therapeutic writing is a job on its own. You can't simply state, well, you did a good job, Tim, or whatever. And in fact, written feedback is essential, an essential part of therapy. As a professional, you can really make a difference through writing a clear and bright and content-based feedback. So give yourself time to learn this part. And on top, protocolized CBT can be easier done with the combination of consultations and the modules. And Bram, I think you got another interesting example of motivation.
It's true. Group therapy is one of those things that patients are generally not very motivated for. But last year, I advertised on the internet for an online group therapy, and we had 300 registrations within 24 hours. And that's just to illustrate that what you say, Bart, I think is very true. Often the problem is not the patients, but us as therapists. We sometimes are not as motivated, and because we're sometimes conservative, we're focused on safety, and that's a good thing. But I think when it comes to online therapy in these days, it's very important to still be focused on safety, but also be focused on what's possible. And if we are motivated, I really believe that patients will also be motivated for e-health. Yeah.
All right. E-health is not for complex patients is another myth that a lot of people told me over the years. And that's not true at all. We all know that. I told you I work for Center 45. A lot of people are having huge personality problems. So we do psychodynamic therapy online, screen to screen. We do schema therapy online. And the nice thing, I'm super enthusiastic about it, is that we organize masterclasses about this. So don't believe us, but just go to these masterclasses and they'll tell you all about it. So there are professors in psychodynamic therapy and schema therapy telling you like how it should be done online. And it is how we did it for years online. I want to tell you a story about a patient with complex patient. It was a woman with bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder. She had a depression, panic disorder with agoraphobia, and she had a post-traumatic stress disorder. So a lot of diagnoses. And she didn't want to take public transport because, she had agoraphobia. So she needed to take a taxi if she would see me. It would cost her a lot of money. So I saw her screen to screen. I was a little bit hesitant at first. So we agreed to evaluate once every so often if it would work out. And it did very well. We never saw each other face to face. We started, she was very disorganized. A lot of things happened. Sexual abuse, dominant mom, she had a son who threatened her with a knife, many things, bad relationships. So we first made a lifeline, like I told you, from the narrative exposure therapy. And the lifeline you can see on the right on the sheet. So she made a vertical lifeline, and she made stones for traumas, She put stones there for trauma. She looked on Google what stones would fit what trauma, and she put flowers for happy moments in her life. And between sessions, she put photos in the document. So it became a photo album of her life. It became a really nice document of her life. And she said that it had helped her so much already incorporate everything in her life that it was 25% of therapy. But of course, she had many diagnoses. And then we started schema therapy. We did imaginary rescripting online. I will do an imagination exercise in a couple of seconds with all of you. I wanted to make her conscious of what was happening, what mode she was in schema therapy, what emotional state she was in, modes as you call it in schema therapy. So she made music lists on Spotify for what mode she was in. So vulnerable child mode, for example, or when she was really angry, it was an angry child mode, and she had a Nirvana playlist for that. She used her phone also to tape our rescripting exercise, and she listened to it every day in between our sessions. So all in all, the therapy went really well. And I would say, I don't have a comparison, this went quicker because the use of technology, for example, the phone and Spotify, than the usual treatment of such a complex patient. I've treated many complex patients over the years online, and for sure it can be done. But again, if you want to know more, then visit our masterclass because they're super interesting, I think. Let's do exercise. Next slide, Bram.
Yep.
I want to show you guys that imagination is possible online. So you see me through a screen. You're at home, I guess, or at work. Helene is joining us. We're going to do a safe place exercise. So all of us, except for me, and also the people at home, take in your mind a safe place. It can be a fantasy place, it can be a movie place, it can be a place in your youth where you felt safe, or it can be a place in the here and now, as we say, so in the balcony, or it can be a garden where you feel really safe. So take a moment to think of a place like that. I know Bart, Bram, and Helene are already in there because they've done it before. It gets easier. So take a couple of seconds to think of your safe place. And once you have that safe place, close your eyes, just like Helene, Bram, and Bart. And imagine you're there, sitting, standing, or lying. Imagine you're there and feel how that safe place feels for you. Where do you feel the safety in your body? Where do you feel the safety in your body? Where do you feel relaxed in your body? Take a look around in that place, that safe place of yours. Take a look around and see what you see that makes you feel safe in that place. And focus on that. Focus on that thing you see, or maybe nature you see, what makes you feel safe, and see what it does to your body. Where do you feel even safer and more relaxed? Now you've done that, now take a moment to listen what you hear in that situation. Maybe you hear the sounds of nature, maybe you hear waves crashing at the beach, or maybe you hear birds or something else that makes you feel even safer and more relaxed. So focus on it. While focusing on that, notice what it does to your body, that it makes you even more relaxed and more safe. And then last but not least, take a moment to smell what you smell there. Maybe there's a particular smell in that safe place of yours. Maybe it's nature, maybe something else. Take a moment to smell in your safe place. Maybe there's a particular smell that makes you feel safe. Now lastly, take a moment to feel in your body where you feel safest. Where do you feel that safety in your body? Maybe it's your belly, maybe it's your breathing, maybe it's your arms. Where do you feel that? And focus on that space. Focus on that spot in your body. And then in your imagination, you may leave that place, but you're still in your body feeling safe. You may open your eyes. They open your eyes. And this was the end of the safe place exercise. I'm curious how it was for you. You can leave a comment in the Q&A if that actually worked for you at home or at work where you are. I see Bram, Bart, Helene looking very relaxed, so I guess it worked for them.
I'm too relaxed now.
Too relaxed, yeah. I need some tension. Okay. Okay, next.
Every time I go back to the same safe space with your voice, immediately to a little bench on Ibiza.
Oh, that's very nice.
That's good. The last myth is you cannot prescribe medicine online. And this is actually a myth that could be true in your country. And for that, you have to find out the rules and regulations in your country. In the Netherlands, I've done it as a psychiatrist for years. It is possible. You had to be creative. These days, because of the COVID-19 crisis, they've changed the rules and regulations. As a doctor, you need to be able to see your patient completely. You need to see them from top to bottom. So you have to put your patient, you say, first 10 minutes of this talk, I want to see you, but then from some distance, so I can see all of you, because you got to see if a patient is nervous, is ticking with their foot, or with their feet, whether they're moving their legs. You got to see, to do a proper examination, you have to see the whole patient. And if you do that, you can prescribe medicine if there is no other way. As long as you document it well in the file, patient's file, it is possible in the Netherlands to do it. And you can, even with the COVID-19 crisis and patients cannot be seen for regular checkups, you can do things like send them a blood pressure machine, so they can take their own blood pressure, and you can do the normal checkups that you do at home, just like you would when you do it in your practice. So it is not true, it's a myth. It can be done, but you have to do it with a lot of care to make sure your patient is all right. And that brings me to, because of the time, it brings me to one of our last slides. What are the advantages of e-health online treatment? Well, for one, there is more control not for the therapist, but for the patient. And that in this day and age is very in line with the way patients are becoming more, not demanding is not the right word, but they're becoming more vocal. And they take their responsibility as patients for their own treatment, which is really good. They have control. They can close the laptop if they want to. And that gives them, puts them more at ease and makes the therapy more able to get in. It's more openness because they're at home. They have their own cup of coffee. A lot of people, Tim, were saying that they enjoy this imagination that Tim was doing because they are at home. They can relax more and they can experience it better. It's more creative. You have to be more creative. Tim was giving loads of examples of how you can be more creative doing a treatment, as well. The therapist as well as the patient will have to be more creative to get the maximum out of it. It's more personal. Every treatment is a visit to a patient's home. You come into their own living space and you can ask them, hey, can you pick up the laptop and can you show us around, show me where you live? And in so doing, you can also do a lot of diagnostics, because the way the person lives tells you a lot about their mental condition. It's in vivo. You're actually there where the problems appear. If there's family problems, you are there with them. If they are afraid of going onto the streets because of agoraphobia, you can, on your smartphone, on their smartphone, you can go with them. It's in vivo. It's more intense because of the, if you do work blended, if you do all these modules and you send them emails throughout the week, you intensify the treatment, and in so doing, you make it more effective. And of course, in this time and day and age, you do not need protection if you work online. There is less contamination. And that is the reason why we're doing this now. And talking about safety, a lot of people ask me, so what's a great program to do online work? I've been using Zoom for a long time, but Zoom right now is a lot in the news in a negative way. Apparently, they did not have their stuff in order. So there are, thankfully, there's a number of other companies that provide video conferencing ability. And like Microsoft Teams, in the Netherlands, there's Carify and Mind District. But there's a lot of these, and you can, we do not have any stock in any of these, and we don't care which one you choose, as long as it's one that works for you and that's safe. So it needs to be privacy sensitive, it needs to be encrypted, and it needs to work well for you, because you as a therapist have to feel comfortable with it. So try out a few different ones. That's our advice. Try out a few different ones and see which one works for you, and then go do it. That's the message of our webinar today. I'm gonna skip that one. Before we get to the Q&A, quickly we want to tell you about what we're doing online at the moment. We just mentioned it. We're doing a masterclass series. We're just finishing one tomorrow. Tonight we have art therapy, but this is what's been in it. Online.
Yeah, but you can look it back, right? So we're finishing the first series, but you can look it back. So you can still look at what we've done. And not everything is in English for international guests, I think.
But we will subtitle.
We will arrange subtitles. So online psychotherapy is in English, virtual reality is in English, online schema therapy is in English, right?
This evening it's not. There were a couple of questions if
tonight,
people could follow.
Tonight it's in Dutch.
That's tonight is in Dutch. Yeah.
And tomorrow as well.
Tomorrow we did. In Dutch. Online group therapy is in English. But yeah. Anything else? Yeah. So this is it. This is what is in English. We're arranging subtitles because we know this is also important for our international colleagues. The next series.
It's here. I will show a quick movie.
The next series is gonna be so good, and it's gonna be all in English. So we want to show you this movie.
I want to quickly show you this movie.
Starting next Tuesday.
We want to emphasize
couple therapy. Yeah,
it's a film.
It's so these are not all the people that are in it. We will show you the entire list a bit later.
Hi, I'm Sue Johnson. I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes about emotionally focused couples therapy, or EFT.
So which was the bit here that made you angry? Because the whole situation is a big problem, isn't it?
Well, just knowing that Jez was there.
Sorry? Has that made you angry?
Yeah, really angry.
Right, okay.
Instead of behaving in a judgmental way or a critical way, she just really expressed caring and concern for him. And he broke down crying.
Is how improving the mental health care system, improving access to people is going to be able to help the overall healthcare system.
It seems to me, armed with that knowledge today, that ordinary people in the community with appropriate training and supervision can play some role in healthcare delivery. Perhaps the promise of health for all is now just within our grasp.
Maybe, Tim, you can say a bit about the stature of all these speakers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these people are, for us, like the gods of psychotherapy. They are. I mean, Sue Johnson, if you think about couple therapy, she's going to talk. She wrote the book Hold Me Tight for the people who do couple therapy. She's the founder of emotionally focused therapy. She's going to talk to us next Tuesday of how we should do this online. Ellen Abbas is download therapy. So this is a more confronting psychodynamic psychotherapy. He will teach us. He's the president of ISTDP, download therapy. He lives in Montreal, and he will tell us how to do this online. Next slide, maybe. Yeah, there are many, but just to pick out a couple. Vikram Patel, if you've been in global mental health, this is the guy. He's like the Gandhi of global mental health. He tries to provide mental health for people around the globe. Vikram Patel, he works at Harvard. He will be in our webinar series. David Bernstein, online schema therapy. He will show how to set limits for borderline and narcissistic patients. He's a professor in schema therapy. and he will do role plays with his wife. He's looking forward to it, and we're looking forward to it. And of course, Professor Anthony Bateman. Anthony Bateman is one of the founders of mentalization-based treatment. It's going to be amazing to have him talk to us about online MBT. So please come to the webinar.
You can register for it on ehealthspecialist.com/masterclass.
Yeah.
Make sure you pick the right series, because there's 2 series to pick from.
Yeah, so this is series 2, bigger.
Okay.
We want to emphasize that if you register and want to follow these masterclasses, we will donate a part of the income to a company or a group of people who are busy trying to find medication for the COVID-19 disease.
They work at the Leiden Universitair Medical Center, and they are part of a European collaboration to find a vaccine against COVID-19. So, yes, Q&A. There's a lot of questions there. I'd love to answer some of them. Let's see. Ivan van Heesen says, it's amazing that Zoom is AVG approved. You have to accept that they share your data before you use the application. Yes, so that picture that you saw with AVG approved is needs to be thoroughly updated. Oh. And they are apparently not AVG approved, but they are working on becoming it again. So it's actually quite unclear whether they are. They claim to be AVG approved. They are GDPR in English. But it seems like they're not. So whenever you're in doubt, don't do it. That's my advice. And there seems to be some doubt around Zoom at the moment in treating patients.
Bram, there was also a question about what to do with crisis situations.
Very good question. We give a course during the daytime for Dutch-speaking people on how to do online therapy, where we practice especially crisis situations. Because if you want to do have a crisis online, you don't want to, but if you do have one, how do you handle it? It's a difficult question. One of the most important things that I can already say is be prepared for it. So when you start online treatment, make sure you have what we call a crisis plan, where you go and look with the patient, what will you do and what will I do if you get worse? Because right now you have complaints like depression or anxiety, but what if it gets worse? And you want to prepare that, you want to talk with the patient about that before it happens.
Yes,
and
so you want to be much more explicit, right, Bram?
Yeah.
So you want to be much more explicit. So we do trauma treatment online, severe personality disorder. So we make a much more explicit crisis plan. So we want to know, like, if somebody gets out of a session, what do we do? What is somebody's going to do? Is going to do? So explicit crisis plan, and we get the partner along in the crisis plan.
Involve the system, involve the system of the patient, the family, and involve other healthcare professionals that also give care, like a general practitioner, etc. So you make sure that there is something around the patient when you start doing difficult treatments.
And what about family therapy? If you want to treat the system as a whole, can the three of you say something about that?
I think
how you
family
deal
therapy.
with it?
Yeah, I think family therapy, again, Sue Johnson can tell us better, but family therapy you can do, and sometimes it's even nicer to do family therapy, because what we experience in the face-to-face sessions is that people start talking simultaneously, and when you're in a screen like us four, imagine we're a family, then we'll let each other speak, and this is also what's happening online. So sometimes it's actually easier to do family therapy. But again, yeah, so if you want to know a lot about it, then follow Sue Johnson's work for sure. She'll explain it. Just to make sure, I put a link in the chat if you want to follow the masterclass.
And what
family
about
therapy can be easier.
What about video conferencing with youth and adolescents? Bart, I guess you have some experience with that?
Yeah, I've worked online with some adolescents, and I worked via video consultation and blended with the online modules, and it worked very good. It was very clear that the youngsters stayed motivated. they all finished their online modules. But I experienced that the consultations were a bit shorter than I experienced with adults. So most of the time, 30 minutes. Then it's done. With adults, it's easier to talk 45 minutes. And last Friday, we had a beautiful webinar with a youth psychiatrist and a clinical psychologist who's working with the children for a long time. And they were both very enthusiastic about working online with this group, especially also the combination with the online modules, because it structures your therapy very much. And it's easy to work together with a child or a youngster.
Yeah, but also, Bart, she explained to us, this is new for me as well, that she did a lot of games with the children.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So she had a monkey, and she had the monkey ask the children, like, "What are your problems?" And or she did like plays with children online to keep the attention. So
as a co-therapist also, the monkey as a co-therapist.
Yeah,
it's quite cool. Yeah.
There's a number of games you can play online, but you can also just have preparations and have a game offline and make sure that the child is prepared on the other side to have something to play with, and you can play with them. Yeah, it's very possible.
Ben has a beautiful suggestion. If Esther Perel is in one of the series, we're busy reaching out to her, and we hope that we can arrange it. Yes, we try.
Bettina asked about...
because she was supposed to give some presentations in the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam over the last 2 weeks.
She also gave a webinar for 10,000 people last week. So.
Give it a try. Give it a try.
We'll give it a try.
I can swap my tickets because I have tickets to see her, but probably she won't come.
Hey, Bettina asked about how do you EMDR online. So one of the things is, so you follow fingers. What I sometimes use is kind of like a prop, for example, this, but something red is nicer. So somebody follows this. And I let people, you want to text a working memory, so I let people do mathematical things. So 8 + 6 is 14. Or I let them spell out words like peanut, for example. But there are a couple of things you do differently. So you want to see more of the patients, for example. Well, there are a couple of tips and tricks, but these are a couple of them.
Good.
Right?
Any more questions?
Maybe can I add one thing, because most of the webinars are in Dutch. The last time we did a specific dissemination technique for this webinar in English. We didn't do that for this evening. So if there is next week a webinar in English again, you can also use the participants to spread the word by different social media channels.
Did we plan that next week, guys?
Not yet, but we probably will. And we will let you know on our website, elspecialist.com, and on our LinkedIn page.
And there has come also a specific request from Australia, but the timing of that webinar will be a bit difficult, but we can do it early in the morning.
Early in the morning.
At 8 or 9 o'clock.
For sure we can.
We will pick that up.
Sure.
Yeah.
No.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Go to the masterclass. It's amazing. And see you later, maybe.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you very
Thank
much.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Elaine.